You're staring at your bank account. $45,000. 6 years of saving, skipping vacations, saying no to dinners out. And now your real estate agent is calling again. If you don't act now, you'll regret it. Your parents keep asking when you'll stop wasting money on rent. Your friends who bought 3 years ago won't shut up about their equity. And you're sitting there at 2 a.m., calculator in hand, wondering if everyone else knows something you don't. Here's what I'm about to tell you. Everything you've been told about renting being throwing money away is a lie. And I'm going to prove it with one simple rule that will change how you think about the biggest financial decision of your life. My name is Nate, and I spend way too much time reverse engineering the worst financial advice people follow blindly. Today, we're talking about the rent versus buy decision in 2026. And I'm warning you right now, what you're about to hear will probably make you angry, especially if you just bought a house. Let me paint you a picture. You found a house. 3 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, $425,000, with 20% down. That's $85,000 out of your savings. Your mortgage payment at 6.5% interest would be $2,146 per month. Add property tax, another $392. Insurance, $150. Maintenance, conservatively, $354. That's $3,042 per month before you've bought a single piece of furniture. You're currently renting a similar house for $2,200. Your gut is screaming that renting makes more sense. But everyone around you is saying you're making a mistake, that you're building someone else's wealth, that you'll never get ahead as a renter. So which one is actually cheaper? And more importantly, which one will make you wealthier in 10 years? The answer is hidden in something called the 7% rule. And once you understand it, you'll stop listening to real estate agents, stop listening to your parents' outdated advice from 1995, and start making decisions based on actual math instead of emotional manipulation. Here's the big lie they keep repeating. When you rent, you're throwing money away. When you buy, you're building equity. It sounds logical, it feels true, but it's completely wrong. Because here's what nobody tells you. When you own a home, you're also throwing money away every single month. You're just throwing it in different directions. And in 2026, you're throwing away a lot more than you think. Let me break down the 3 major costs of homeownership that disappear forever, just like rent. First, property taxes. You own the house, but you still have to pay the government every single year. The average property tax rate in the United States is about 1.11% of your home's value. On a $500,000 house, that's $5,550 per year. That's $462 per month. Gone forever. You're not building equity with that money. You're paying for the privilege of ownership. Second, maintenance. Experts recommend budgeting 1 to 2% of your home's value annually just to keep it from falling apart. Let's be conservative and use 1%. On a $500,000 home, that's $5,000 per year. $417 per month for the roof that will eventually need replacing. The V8 that will die on the hottest day of summer, the water heater, the foundation issues, the plumbing disasters you can't predict. This money disappears. You're not building equity by fixing a broken furnace. You're just preventing your investment from deteriorating. Third, and this is the part almost nobody explains clearly, the cost of capital. Pay attention because this is where the 7% rule comes from. Your money has something called opportunity cost. When you put $100,000 into a down payment, that's $100,000 you're not investing in the stock market. Historically, the S&P 500 has averaged 10% annual returns over the past century. Meanwhile, homes traditionally appreciate by 4 to 5% each year. The difference? About 5%. That's the opportunity cost of your down payment. The returns you're missing by locking your money in a house instead of investing it. Plus, you're paying mortgage interest on the remaining 80% you financed. At current 2026 rates of around 6.5%, that's substantial. Let me show you the real math on a $500,000 house. You put down $100,000, you finance $400,000. The opportunity cost of your down payment at 5% is $5,000 per year. Mortgage interest at 6.5% on $400,000 is approximately $26,000 per year in the first year. Combined, that's $31,000 per year, or $2,583 per month. Now let's add it all up. Property taxes at 1.11%, plus maintenance at 1%, plus opportunity cost and interest at roughly 5%. That's approximately 7% of the home's value annually. This is the 7% rule. To find out how much homeownership actually costs you per month in money you'll never see again, take the home price, multiply by 7%, divide by 12, $500,000 times 0.07 equals $35,000 per year. Divided by 12 equals $2,917 per month. That's how much you're throwing away every month as a homeowner. Money you'll never see again, just like rent. So if you can rent a similar house for less than $2,917 per month, renting is financially superior. Period. Take the price of a house in your area right now. Multiply by 0.07. Divide by 12. That's your break-even rent. If renting costs less, you save money by renting. If ownership costs less, buying might make sense. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in 2026, because the numbers are brutal. Mortgage rates are averaging 6.3% for the entire year, according to Redfin's forecast. That's down slightly from 2025's 6.6% average, but nowhere near the 3% pandemic rates everyone keeps using as their baseline. Some optimistic predictions put rates occasionally in the low sixes, but not for any meaningful period. And home prices? Zillow economists expect U.S. home values to grow 1.2% in 2026. Redfin expects the median U.S. home sale price to rise 1% year over year. Homes are getting more expensive. Rates are staying high. Affordability remains terrible, especially for younger buyers. But here's what's interesting about rents. As of September 2025, median rent prices had declined year over year for 26 straight months. Rental affordability is actually improving while home buying affordability stays stuck in the mud. Nationwide, rents are expected to rise about 2 to 3% year over year by the end of 2026, roughly the pace of inflation. That's manageable. Meanwhile, homeownership costs are locked in at whatever rate you buy at. And if you're buying at 6.5%, you're locked into that payment structure for 3 decades, unless you refinance. Look, I'm not saying buying is always bad. I'm saying it's bad right now for most people in most markets. Buying makes sense when you're staying put for 10 years minimum. Transaction costs will destroy you on shorter timelines. It makes sense when the 7% rule works in your favor. When monthly ownership costs are significantly lower than comparable rent. When you have a massive down payment, 30 to 40% or more. This dramatically reduces your mortgage and opportunity cost. It makes sense when rates drop to 4% or below. At 3.5% mortgage rates, buying becomes financially superior to renting in many scenarios. And it makes sense when you value intangible benefits enough to pay for them. Fixed housing costs, complete customization, emotional stability. These are real benefits. But they cost money. Here's the problem most people don't want to hear. Assuming an 8% average annual investment return, renting actually comes out ahead by about $120,000 over a decade in many current market scenarios. Let me repeat that. Over 10 years, renters who invest the difference between rent and ownership costs can end up $120,000 richer than homeowners in equivalent properties. That's not a rounding error. That's life-changing money. Now I know what you're thinking. But equity, but forced savings, but tax deductions. Let me address these one by one. But I'm building equity. Yes, you're also paying interest. In the early years of a 30-year mortgage, most of your payment is interest. At 6.5% on a $400,000 loan, you're paying roughly $2,167 per month in interest in year one. You're building maybe $400 to $500 per month in equity initially. Meanwhile, the renter investing that difference is building actual liquid wealth they can access without selling their home or taking out a loan against it. But it's forced savings. You know what else is forced savings? Automatic investment contributions. Set up an auto transfer from checking to a brokerage account. Boom! Forced savings without the illiquidity, without the transaction costs, and without the risk of a housing market crash wiping out your down payment. But tax deductions. The standard deduction is now $14,600 for individuals, $29,200 for married couples. Unless you have significantly more than that in mortgage interest to deduct, the tax benefit is minimal to non-existent. And even if you do get a tax benefit, it doesn't outweigh the opportunity cost and transaction costs of homeownership. But rent keeps going up. So do property taxes, so does insurance, so does maintenance. Your mortgage payment is fixed, but your total housing cost absolutely is not. Here's where I'll be fair. There are real intangible benefits to homeownership that don't show up in spreadsheets. Predictable core housing costs with a fixed mortgage. Complete control over your space. You can't be evicted by a landlord. Inflation works in your favor over time. Long-term emotional stability and putting down roots. But there are also intangible costs nobody talks about. You're locked in. You can't move easily for career opportunities without eating massive transaction costs. You're responsible for every disaster. Burst pipe at 2 a.m.? That's on you, and it's expensive. Your wealth is illiquid. It's trapped in walls and can't be accessed without selling or borrowing against it. And you're concentrated. Having most of your net worth in a single asset, in a single location, is risky as hell. According to NerdWallet's 2025 Home Buyer Report, 52% of American renters actually prefer renting to all the expenses and effort of homeownership. And 36% plan on renting forever. That's not failure. That's people doing math and choosing freedom over being house poor. Based on current 2026 conditions, with mortgage rates in the low sixes and current home prices, renting is financially superior in most major U.S. markets right now. With many Americans still locked out by high down payments and expensive monthly payments, rental demand will stay elevated. The math is clear. In 2026, unless you're getting a smoking deal or rates drop dramatically, renting and investing the difference will leave you wealthier after 10 years than buying. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't permanent. Markets change, rates fluctuate. The 7% rule will give different answers in different years. That's why you need to run the numbers for your situation, in your market, at the time you're making the decision. Not when your parents bought in 1995. Not when your friends bought in 2020. Right now, today with today's numbers. So here's your takeaway. Renting is not throwing money away. Buying is not automatically building wealth. Both options involve costs that disappear forever every month. The only question is which option costs you less. The 7% rule gives you the answer in about 30 seconds. Home price multiplied by 0.07 divided by 12 equals your monthly break-even rent. If you can rent for less, rent. If ownership costs less, buy. Ignore everything else. Run the numbers for your market right now. Drop your calculation in the comments. And remember, the person telling you renting is throwing money away probably makes money when you buy. Your real estate agent gets a commission. Your mortgage broker gets a commission. Your parents want bragging rights. Nobody gets paid when you make the smart decision. That's why you need to do the math yourself. Your bank account will thank you.